let's talk about Vanity Publishing. Switch this out.
All right. So what is vanity publishing?
So Vanity Publishing is where an author is paying a publishing company to produce their book and publish it. Okay. Unfortunately, the advent of Amazon, even before Amazon came about, there was a market for people to get published. And I'll use a couple of examples. Let's say you're a college professor and it helps your resume to publish a book and to be published. Then in some cases, it's worth paying a publishing company, or what we call a vanity publisher, to publish that book so that on your resume, you can say you're published. Or when you go around to speak, you have a book that adds credibility. What we've seen in the industry and still happens today, for instance, public speakers who like to carry their books with them and sell them at their events. They're not really concerned about selling their books in a retail environment, but they have events that they want to sell books at. Wealth managers who sometimes will do a book kind of like the college professor, where it lends credibility to the fact that they have a book. Now, the average person is not going to know the difference between a traditional published book or a vanity published book, but the book retailers know the difference. So with vanity publishing, you're paying money for somebody to publish your book. So really, for vanity publishers, they make their money by you buying a quote author package or paying them to publish the book. So the focus is not on the quality of the book. It's not on the quality of the editorial content. It's not on the cover. It's almost like they're churning book publishing deals. And listen, we've seen these as high as $35,000 and $50,000 to publish a book. And I'm telling you, it doesn't cost that much to publish a book, but you'll see that large money. We see it a lot in the romance genre. We see it in the business, leadership, entrepreneurial genre, where there's large upfront. And I feel very sorry for them because, again, we have a lot of authors come to us that went that route and don't understand why they didn't sell any books. And again, the book retailers are not dumb. They have buyers, they have procurement departments. They know what publishing houses are vanity publishers, and they know that in order to order those books, number one, they have to have a returns program. So if they don't have a returns program, they're not going to carry their book, because then the retailer's on the hook for the book that they buy. And if they don't sell through, then they go into a sale bin because they have no ability to return them. The second thing is it's the same as self-publishing. They get very concerned about the quality of the book. Are there spelling errors? Is the formatting bad? Is the paper bad? Is the cover bad? So vanity publishing, although you can get a book published this way, again, you're not going to get mass distribution from it because the booksellers know who the vanity publishers are. And by the way, we know this. If you want to know how a book retailer knows this, it's all by the ISBN number, which is the number. You open the first page of your book, you see ISBN numbers for different formats. That's kind of like the serial number or the DNA for your book. And the book retailers can tell a lot by your ISBN number. They'll know immediately if it's self-published. They'll know immediately if it's a vanity publishing house that produced the book. The other downside is the large publishing package cost. And we've seen these just be out of sight. And then even when they're not out of sight, what happens is, and it's a buyer beware scenario where it looks low cost, and then you get nickel to dime along the way. You find out, well, hey, if there's editing, that's another $1,200. If there's formatting and you want an ebook formatted, that's another $2,000. And so again, it depends on what the author's goal is for the book, whether they want to do a vanity deal or not. I've already mentioned it's minimal distribution. The other thing too is pretty much you're on your own after the book is released. There's no post-book release support typically, which means that when you're sitting there a month after your book has been released and you're wondering why it's not selling, a lot of folks, when they call the vanity publishing house to say, hey, why isn't my book selling? What can I do? They're either going to try to upsell you on something else, maybe some marketing, or they're going to try to sell you another book package to do a second book. And there's just not a lot of support there.
So it sounds like to me that for vanity, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the vanity publishing route would be the best for somebody that wants to elevate their personal brand to leverage future business opportunities, and sort of as almost like a personal relations type of play.
And really, they could do the same thing with self-publishing than vanity. I'd almost recommend self-publishing over vanity, because self-publishing, there are self-publishing services that can do the editing, format, and those kind of things for you. But the goal is, for instance, just to carry books with you and to sell those at seminars or in your own environment, then you really don't need a vanity publisher. You can self-publish, because the vanity publisher is not going to get you distribution either. You have to be very careful when we talk about distribution, because a lot of the vanity publishers will tell you that they enable distribution, and they do. And there's 4 or 5 major distribution access companies like Ingram, even Amazon, KDP, others that do it. And what that means is when they say, and you got to be very careful, when they say they have distribution, that means that book is in their system and it's available for booksellers to order. The key is if there's not a returns policy, then for sure the booksellers are not going to order it. They're not going to take a risk on books that they can't return if they don't sell them. So even though when you go to websites and you see a lot of these vanity publishers say they have distribution, for instance, through Ingram, if there's not a returns policy, then the booksellers are not going to order it. So it's that simple. Not all formats are supported by Vanity. For instance, they may not do international versions. Most of them will do ebook, Kindle and ebook and paperback. They may not do hardcover if you need to have a hardcover. They may not do other formats. So it's important to know that. If your book has a lot of illustrations on the book, or if you have pictures in the book, a lot of times vanity publishers cannot support those because it takes a different level of expertise to do those. And then the other good thing about Vanity is you're going to keep your rights. Okay. One thing that I want to mention as we go through these is filing copyrights, because most people when they're self-publishing don't know how to file a copyright for their book, and copyrights are very important so that your book's not lifted and stolen and marketed somewhere else. So always make sure, no matter who's publishing your book, that they offer copyright service to make sure, especially when you're keeping the rights.
And that's something you have to manually go in and do.
The Library of Congress, there's a process to do it, and if you've never done it before, it takes some research to figure out how to do it. And I'm not saying an individual who's self-publishing couldn't do it on their own. They can. It's just another thing that you have to research and figure out how to do yourself.